fellas. Tonight we saw Venom: The Last Dance, the last question mark entry in the Venom trilogy, which might continue into the fourth movie, but probably not because this movie's flopping and everyone doesn't like it. Connor, what's the plot of Venom: The Last Dance?
Sony's Marvel's cinematic universe of Spider-Man affiliated characters returns for a movie that is 90 minutes long that has virtually no exposition. Eddie Brock, after the events of Venom Let There Be Carnage, is on the run because people think he killed a cop guy, but he actually didn't kill the cop. The cop's actually alive still, and he's in the possession of the military in Area 55, which is a secret military base that's located under Area 51, and they're burning Area 51 down with acid to decommission it. But meanwhile, Eddie's transferred back from the MCU because they wanted to remind us that at one point in Spider-Man No Way Home, Venom was in the MCU and is tangentially connected to remind us that the blockbusters are technically very, very loosely canon to the MCU via universe shenanigans. But regardless, they can't say anybody by name as per normal, so we don't mention Spider-Man or Thanos or any of them by name. We just kind of get allusions to Thanos. A new alien threat named Null has sent xenomorph dogs that kind of look like a mixture of the Cloverfield monsters, and not to get the codex of Venom, which will unlock a way for him to be freed from prison that he's been entombed in for centuries because the Venom symbiotes rose up and put him in a prison of his own making or something. And the only codec that has ever been made is with Venom and Eddie, because in the last movie Eddie dies in a fake out death and is instantly revived by Venom, and this created a codex which can work as a key to unlock his prison for some reason. That's not really explained. So if Eddie and Venom say, we're going to go to New York City and figure this out or live there or something. So they start to travel, but they're on an airplane, and then one of the Cloverfield dogs come out of nowhere, the xenomorph Cloverfield dogs, and then they get stranded in the middle of the Nevada desert near Area 51, which I don't know why they were flying from Mexico to New York and flew over Nevada on the West Coast. Doesn't really make sense. Think about it. I guess maybe they were on a connection flight, or maybe they were just going to aimlessly go airplane to airplane until they found something. I don't know. But it's not really shown how they get on the airplane or determine anything. Venom just kind of has omniscient knowledge of everything. But Area 51 has a bunch of other Venom symbiotes, and they go to Las Vegas, and the only recurring character from the previous movies is there, and that is the Asian shopkeeper lady who won the Powerball or is on vacation there or something. She has money, and then I started sleeping. But from what I understand of the plot, they dance to Dancing Queen.
Yep.
Despite the fact that Venom knows that this will summon the alien dogs to try to kill them, but Area 55 guys, the underground base under Area 51, reminiscent of the underground base below the Hoover Dam from Transformers, they show up and they pick up Venom and bring him to Area 51, and then him and an army of symbiotes fight these dogs, which at first are murdering these symbiotes and are super menacing, but then when Venom has to beat him, he does. But then Venom dies, which causes it so Null can't come back from the dark ether, because the convoluted plot says that if Venom dies or Eddie dies, then the codec is no longer a thing. And I don't understand how this codec is made, or why the codec is made, or why it's in them, or why it's able to unlock his prison. Was that by design? Seems like a weird design, but that's the case. So Aiden, what did you think of Venom 3, Venom's final last dance?
Venom 3 is a baffling Morbius and Madam Web tier disaster, which is bizarre coming off of Venom 1 and 2, which were moderately self-aware movies and had fun being schlock. And this one just feels unfinished. There's no first act. The first act is they play the end credits scene from Spider-Man No Way Home, and then the first act is over in a minute and a half. And then 80% of the movie is second act, which consists mostly of fight scenes, and Eddie befriends a family of hippies in a microbus who are going to see Area 51, and they sing David Bowie songs and hang out in the van. They're in Vegas for 4 minutes, and they do a 5-minute dance number. And then the military immediately finds them and takes them back to the desert where this movie was almost entirely filmed. And then they fight. And then it's the final battle. The last 20% is the third act, which is just the final battle. It's baffling. It's baffling, to say the least. Boring and baffling. Much like Morbius and Madam Web. Although it really doesn't have the hilarity of either of those movies. And I don't know why it's not as funny, but like the dancing queen scene where Venom and the Asian woman dance is just a thing that happens because the plot needs the alien to go to Vegas. And I don't know why they went to Vegas in the first place. It's basically inconsequential because they're just taken immediately back to where they were in the first place.
My theory on why it's not as funny is because something like Morbius and Madam Web are such stupid concepts to make movies of. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Morbius is like a C-tier Spider-Man villain that they made a movie off of. And Madam Web
is the lady from a video game?
She's in some comics, but like she's really not that important. And I think later on there's a Madam Web that's more similar to this Madam Web, from what I understand. But for the most part, it was just some old lady that hung from a spider web that would tell Peter Parker, like, great mysteries will unfold.
Yeah.
And that was her role in the comics.
Yeah, this movie's not a bafflingly bad idea. It's just not finished. I don't know if this was written as like a 2.5 hour movie and then they just filmed 90 minutes and said, these movies keep flopping and everyone makes fun of them, so we'll just use whatever we have and cobble something together. Or if they shot a 2-hour movie and then they said, this is fucking awful, and cut out literally every scene of exposition. It's frankly kind of inscrutable, where you watch a scene and then it ends and it feels like you missed 15 minutes of the movie and it just continues. Connor fell asleep for the dancing scene and the scenes around it, and when he woke back up, he had effectively missed nothing, and I was just as confused as if I had been asleep for those 15 minutes. It's kind of just a collection of scenes that are either bad comedy scenes with the hippies or mediocre action scenes. And even when like all the scientists turn into different Venoms and they have like different designs and there's like a wacky double Venom with 2 heads, that shit's not funny either because they're just fighting some stupid giant alien bug thing.
Yeah, there's no villain.
And the villain
whatsoever.
the villain's like some weird god guy who can destroy the universe, but he's in a cage, so he sends lizard things. And the first lizard is like the, I guess, main antagonist of 80% of the movie, and it's basically unkillable and kills like 30 Venoms by itself. And then Venom kills it in 2 seconds. And then like 80 more come, and all the rest of them, like all the rest of the extra 80 of them, can just be handily dispatched by the military. Like really very little effort, where they can just kind of shoot them to death, or like Venom can punch them a couple times, and the hippie family gets roped in, and the hippie dad blows one up with a rocket launcher in one shot, even though the first one got shot like a million times and just kept rebuilding itself. It's all kind of just, it feels like half of a first draft, and for how much the Venom horse is in the marketing, the Venom horse is in the movie for like 30 seconds, and then a whole lot of nothing happens. It's baffling. It's boring. It's not nearly as bizarre and hilarious as Morbius and Madam Web, which are just mystifyingly bad ideas. It's just a collection of Venom action scenes piled together in the most nonsense way you could collect them, and it's genuinely awful. It's another genuinely awful movie, but I can't even enjoy it in the way I love Madam Web. It's not funny enough to be Madam Web, and it's not like self-aware enough to be Venom 2. It's just kind of shit. So Connor, what'd you think of Venom: The Last Dance?
Yeah, I think Sony has no idea what they're doing. They never really did. But at least, like, when they did, like, the first two Venom movies and Morbius, they were, like, confident with what they were making. The first Venom movie, by some miracle, was somewhat comprehensive, or somewhat, like, I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was, like, low par for Marvel. But for a Marvel mockbuster, I thought it was surprisingly capable, but not very good. The second movie I thought was trash, but at least there was a level of understanding that,
It's like
and there was
fun
also
trash.
a level of like, no, it wasn't fun. It was an awful movie
Compared to this one, it was.
Yeah, but this movie is like incomprehensible. Like they got made fun of so much. They didn't know if people wanted to laugh along to these Marvel mockbusters or if they genuinely hated them or what. But then Morbius and Madam Web got memed down to oblivion, but no one watched them. Only a few people watched them and the jokes kind of spread. So it wasn't enough to make them worthwhile. So I think with Venom, they overcorrected and had no idea what to do. Also, I think this movie was written by one of the stupidest people ever because most movies will be like, okay, we're going to set something up, and then it'll come back later in the movie. There's one thing set up for a potential sequel, and that's that when Venom's at the bar, he says, keep the change, and then they... Oh no, because then that comes back like 2 scenes later. I thought they were trying to do something smart there, where like Venom actually secretly lived. No,
that is
Venom
what happened,
has an
because at the end,
offspring.
the cockroach is going into the little tube where they put the Venom sample.
Oh, I thought the tube infected the scientist, and that's why she became the Flash.
No, that was a different symbiote, but they also had the Venom thing.
Okay, so yes, Venom survived because he's a cockroach. In case they potentially want to make a 4th movie, which I think
Oh, I forgot
even
to mention
Sony's
the ending
unsure.
montage.
Even Sony's unsure, but they wanted us to reminisce nostalgically over these movies, which is one downright bad movie and one movie that's okay, and then the movie they're presenting us right now, which turned out to be bad, but they probably didn't know that for sure when they made the montage. And everybody clowned on Amazing Spider-Man 2 literally 10 years ago for playing a pop song from 2011. We're like, that shit's like 3 years old. Like, it's weird. And it's out of place in this movie. It is more out of place in a Venom movie where the guy's like chomping heads off, but it's like some like 2011 like car commercial song, like pop song, and Venom's like, Eddie Brock is like sad that Venom died, and it's like, like he's reminiscing on the good times, which is clips from the 3 movies. But there's maybe 2 clips from the first movie, a single clip I noticed from the second movie, and like 20 clips from this movie that was fucking terrible.
The movie we just watched.
And on top of that,
Yeah.
the entire movie, like, it doesn't know how to do setup and payoff, because it'd be like setting something up. Like, Venom will be like, okay, we're walking through the Nevada desert. Then it would cut over to the general guy, and he'd be like, we got a trace on Venom. We need to send troops his way. And then instead of like maybe like having Venom do a scene of exposition and then the helicopter shows up or something, enough time to like establish a time passage, it immediately cuts to the fucking helicopters.
Yeah.
Like flying overhead, and you're like, okay, I guess we're doing an action scene now.
The montage in this movie.
And then there's some like convoluted thing, like Venom will get like hit by a missile and fly 40 miles to wherever the movie needs it next. Like it's a series of ideas with no connective tissue, which is why it's like 98 minutes. And it's all just like action scenes and really terrible dialogue. And then there's things set up like the main lady, her brother and her get struck by lightning, but he conducts the lightning or something, so he dies. This is like a new lady that's like not a love interest and not actually very important. Like in any other movie, they wouldn't have even touched her character, but she has a dead brother, and they were really proud that they thought to set this up, so they spent 7 minutes making a scene of him getting exploded by lightning. And then the whole movie, she's like, I don't know what to think about the Venom symbiote. I have no opinion on the matter. And then they'd be like, but we're going to take Venom. And then she's like, no. And then she'd be like, I have a dead brother, and he'd be really proud of me because he wanted to work at Area 51 when he grew up. But he didn't, so he died. But I work at Area 55, under Area 51.
I figured the payoff for her was going to be that she'd become Lady Venom and save Venom, and they'd there's a bunch of scenes where Venom's like, you should get married and have a family, and I thought she was going to be like a love interest and they'd have like a Venom, Lady Venom thing. But she turns into Lady Venom in one scene where she has flash powers because she got struck by lightning, and she rescues the lady, and then she just untransforms.
Yeah, Venom's love interest that he's obsessed with for the first two movies just isn't in this one.
No one's in this one.
No one's in this one. It really has nothing to do with the first two. Like, were somewhat connected. This is the end of the trilogy, and it's a clusterfuck is the best way to describe this movie.
Montage.
There's just nothing to it, and Sony has not learned their lesson. And I think it's more boring because they tried to play it safer than Morbius and Madam Web, which were hilariously stupid, and this movie is like too safe, but also just like
nonsense.
Horrible moves. Like, they played it super safe in a boring way, but then they failed to play it safe. Like, they failed to play safe, but they tried to play it safe so hard that it's the only funny parts are like when they're playing the 2011 pop song, and it's just like every complaint we've had about any of these bad Sony Marvel movies since like 2002. Like every fucking bad decision ever made in a Spider-Man film or related film has since been readapted for this piece, Venom 3. So Aiden, would you recommend Venom 3?
No. It's not Morbius, it's not Madam Web, it's not even the first two Venom movies. It's a barely comprehensible selection of action scenes, and it ends on the worst montage of all time. Like, the comically worst montage of all time. It's genuinely baffling and awful. Hard pass. Connor, would you recommend Venom: The Last Dance?
No, it's legitimately just unfinished. It is it is one of the most unfinished movies I've ever seen make it to theaters. Like, it seemed like a rough work print of like 3 weeks worth of dailies, and then everybody quit, so they just said, this is what we got, and then they're like, should we even like bother doing the CGI? And then Amy Pascal's like, I think there's enough here. They're like, everyone quit, we weren't able to do the exposition, it makes no sense. And she's like, meh, what'll you do? It's just unfinished. It's awful.
I like how...
And it's not funny like Morbius and stuff, or Madam Web, which both exist. But then on top of that, in less than 2 months, we're getting Kraven. Like, why would you spend money on this movie when Kraven's coming up? Like, no. Even if you're a fan of the first two Venom movies, and I think the second one is absolute garbage, like, the thing about the first two Venom movies is you can always pretend they never made a third. So, it's not like essential. There's no like overarching narrative to the trilogy. Everything's cut out.
I don't know why this
movie's a sequel to the post-credit scenes of Spider-Man No Way Home.
It sure is. I don't know why this
Makes
movie.
no sense.
You could cut out the entire Vegas sequence and literally nothing would change.
I did. I cut it out. And then I snored so loud right at the end. Right when he gets to Area 51, I snored so loud I shocked myself awake, and then I was just wide awake for the rest of the movie. I wasn't even tired going in. I think they were fighting in the river, and I'm like, fuck, I'm getting tired. Then I saved up. Then I stayed up for another. I think I just started getting exhausted from the movie, and then I stayed up another 20 minutes. And then he gets to Las Vegas, and Venom's like, "Viva Las Vegas, baby!" And I immediately fell asleep, and I was done.
Yeah.
My body knew, okay, you can just skip a little. It was like pressing fast forward on the DVD remote, basically. It was skip scene. I bridged the movie for myself a little bit. Took a power nap. Alright, anyways, we'll see you guys next time. Love you.